Jeff Lutz is with me, and he says that he's bullish on the name. What name is that, Jeff?
I mean, I'm definitely bullish on Tesla. I think, again, I've been an investor since 2013. Uh, and I think everybody should make their own decisions because I don't know your investment horizon. I don't know your risk tolerance. But I do like what I'm seeing from the company. I think from a vehicle perspective and just a car only company, they've put themselves through a treacherous period of, the highest rates in, a couple of decades. And swiftly, we got to those rates pretty swiftly. And a lot of pressure on consumers, a lot of pressure on the ability to get money. And I think Tesla's pulled through this pretty well. And now I think they're going to get some help from a macro perspective. It's not all going to happen at once. But the way that growth companies are evaluated or evaluated, one of them is on its earnings multiple. And if rates are lower, from a discounting perspective, that's going to help Tesla in the future. And, people are going to have better access to credit here shortly.
Mm.
Tesla is feeling the pain from that in terms of having to meet this and support this themselves in their net ASPs where they have to take interest rates down. So there's going to be some puts and takes. I like what's happening in the quarter. They've made a decision that we're going to keep volumes high, maybe higher than ever before. We'll see.
Mhm.
But they're going to keep their factories filled. They're going to keep their suppliers' factories filled, which the message to them is then, hey, I'm giving you business. I want price reductions. Message to their factory managers, I'm filling up the factories. I want efficiency improvements out of you in the factory. And I like that message because this is the great bull bear debate now. The bull bear debate is, or at least one of the great bull bear debates is they're getting to these volumes. In some regions it's lower, some regions it's similar to last year, some regions it's higher, but they're doing this with low interest rates and all this pressure on gross margins. And that's absolutely true. But
With
that
high
is the
interest rates,
environment
high
that the
interest
auto
rates.
industry is in.
Yeah.
And the alternative, what's the alternative? Idle your factories? You're going to take a COGS hit anyway. So
Mm.
this is the better COGS hit to take because now you're in a rate cutting regime. Now you can meet that halfway and in time. So if you're analyzing the company, I think you've got to stitch a couple quarters together and say, our gross margins bottoming and our units going up, and you may be able to make that claim here pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned in the green room, Goldman said today, I saw it on your X thread, buy call options. It was just a single line. I don't know where that was picked up from. I didn't see the original note or the original post, but just buy call options. I thought that was an unusual recommendation from Goldman.
I think it's actually absurd. I don't think you should listen to any analyst that says that. And um, so yeah, I think it's absurd because they don't know your time horizon, they don't know your risk tolerance, and it feels strange. I don't even know where their particular analyst is on the company in terms of price target.
Yeah.
So to go out and tell people to buy options, I think is a bizarre thing for a firm like that to say. So I don't. I mean, everybody should do whatever they want based on their own risk tolerance. I think it's absurd that they did that.
So the community is pretty bullish on Tesla right now. Even some of the neutral investment houses are even coming out with bullish notes. Cantor today, very bubbly about robotaxi, very bubbly about new vehicles and energy, and they even gave a nod to Optimus.
Yeah.
So very good to see. A lot of the analysts are coming out. Uh, uh, some of the neutral to bear folks in the X community or in the YouTube community have gotten way more bullish right now. Or is that what you're feeling? Just kind of an overall enthusiasm, excitement?
Yeah, and it's a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about probably for the last year or 18 months, which is uh again, we're going to get some macro help here pretty soon. Tesla would enter into and come out of any kind of auto slowdown faster than any other company just based on their efficiency, network, lower network rate, and so forth. And then why the hell has Elon been buying so much compute to the fact that he's in the top three now in terms of the compute that he's the steward of? Why is he doing that? This is a person who has a history of being a very highly efficient capital allocator.
Right.
So why is he doing this? And who is going to be the first to actually monetizing this? And you're seeing some, I would say you're seeing some definite stuttering when it comes to Microsoft and Copilot and how monetizable is it? How well does it actually work? You can say that arguably too for Tesla and FSD beta.
Uh-huh.
But I would say that in terms of the number of AI interactions and the number of subscribers that are out there, I think Tesla, they're in a leading position in terms of the number of edge devices that have Tesla AI inside of them that are being used in the world today. And I would say if you look at the training data that they're collecting, there's no one that's even close. So now you have the most training data, you have the most edge devices out in the wild, and now Elon comes over the top and is spending billions of dollars acquiring the largest and building the largest clusters in the world, and he's bringing them up faster than anybody else that does it. Why is he doing this? And I think analysts are starting to stitch all of these threads together and saying there's something here that we better start catching up on. And oh, by the way, they're looking at the price action and saying, all right, people are definitely getting a little bit more bullish. So I don't play, I do read the words of their notes. So I try to see, like, especially if they've talked to the company, like Cantor spoke with the company, they spoke
Right.
with the head of IR, and I definitely read the words. But in terms of the price targets, I just view them as like chasing price action up and chasing price action down. Um, Morgan Stanley, I would say, has been fairly stalwart over the last
Mhm.
year, but they also famously had the, $10, I guess would be $2 or so adjusted price target on the company as well, on the downside. So on the analyst side, I read the words, I make my own conclusions. When they put a number out there in a time frame, to me, that's a little bit of a random number generator from them at
Well,
times.
then, of course, we on YouTube are not that way. So that's what I want to ask you next. What I just did a poll, and the folks on X that voted so far, and there wasn't that many when we got on, are thinking that the price is going to be between 250 and 350 by the end of this year. What do you have a number in mind for 1010? Do you have a number in mind for 1011?
No,
You have no
no,
numbers in mind.
I
You
don't
have
do that.
nothing.
I mean, here's what I would say. I've been invested for a long time. Anybody that watches this video that should know I'm just a long-term
Yes.
investor in
Yes.
Bullish, but in terms of timing it, trying to trade it,
Oh, I
trying to
know
say
you.
it's going to be this number by this date and that number by that date, I don't have enough, I don't know enough to be able to do that. I think there's people out there that that try to like they try to read options flow, try to read different things and try to understand that in price action. It's fun to guess, and I know why you're asking the question. It's a great question, but I'm making a decision to hold it, so I figure it's going to be higher than it is today.
There you go.
But you never know.
Yeah.
This thing's a pretty volatile name.
Well, speaking of punditry, Adam Jonas was out with a very major note today, cutting Ford, General Motors, and Rivian, and saying he doesn't like the auto industry prospects at all across the board. I mean, he didn't include Tesla in that description, but just in general, the auto industry. What did you think?
Well, I mean, Morgan Stanley, recently made Tesla its top auto pick and made Nvidia. It's kind of its top pick overall. It is, really Tesla and Nvidia as their top picks in tech. And yeah, I mean, this is the thing we've been talking about. We've been talking about high inventories. We've been talking about a consumer under pressure, and we've been talking about companies that aren't driving that +1 or +10 that Tesla is driving in terms of the cloud infrastructure compute, the AI, the edge devices inside of each vehicle. They're not doing any of this. So like, and they've proven that they can't design an EV. They can't do the auto only business. They can't do that profitably. And so when you see total units coming down in auto, I think we entered this year in the US with around a 16 million SAR. That's the wholesale prediction for sales in the US. And I think we're trending somewhere between 15.0 and 15.3.
Yes.
Now it's down. We had a good August. And I think there's some mixed information. I'm going to be very interested in September because we entered into August with record high inventories in the auto industry, probably 5-year high inventories in US, and then it came down. It came down through August. It's a 5-week month. It's not down the normal. It's still around 70 days of inventory, and they
Huh?
target about 45 or 50. But it's down a lot. It's down from 100, which is where it was before. So we're getting some mixed signals in auto. I can see why Morgan Stanley did that because, where are these companies going? How are they going to drive massive growths in EPS? They're getting crushed in China. These companies used to have gigantic businesses in China and abroad. And what's happening is China is killing them in China, and now China is going
Right.
abroad.
Right.
And there's really no room for them. And then, even the Western European automakers are struggling. So, this is a real challenge, I would say, right now for the auto industry. And I think you are going to see some of them, they're going to have to restructure and come back as something different or something, maybe nothing at all. You also saw Stellantis this week publicly come out and say they're looking for a new CEO.
Right.
So, it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So we're only a little while away from 10:10. I have not gotten my ticket. I understand they're out. I've never actually applied for one before. Do they come by email or do they come in your app or how do you get them?
I think they come by email. Yeah.
Email. Okay. Well, so far my email has not blessed me, but I'll keep double checking. And there's no plus ones. What's with that?
Yeah.
So you can't even bring
And
your
they
son.
said that this event would be limited in space.
I
And
see.
if you've been to if you like the Cybertruck event, it was pretty. They invited a lot of people, but the actual space for the event to actually see the unveiling was quite small, and
I see.
we're
Yeah.
definitely crammed in. And then I think you also have the security element as well,
Sure.
being amplified. So I think in this case maybe less is better. I think they'll probably have a great way to view this online live stream. So I think
Sure.
that's good for people as well.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so we've got the 1010 event. Everybody obviously is super focused on it. Elon says it'll be the most important event since the Model 3 unveiling. And that would include the Model Y and the Cybertruck. So I mean that's a pretty big deal. So we're all focused on that. What are you expecting? What are you hoping for? What is your what can't they not what can they not do what can they do that would really or not do that would really blow up the stock or something, in other words, what would be a big miss in addition to what would be a great get?
Yeah. I think if the robotaxi looks strange, I think and off-putting, um, I mean, the Cybertruck looks strange, but it didn't look, I think it kind of was presented as like this cool futuristic
Interesting.
thing. And I don't think Tesla's going to, so you asked me, I'll answer that question very quickly and move on. I don't think Tesla is going to show something that's strange and off-putting, but if they were, I think that could be something. I think if they don't announce something that can produce something related to this sphere of supervised, unsupervised, if they don't announce something that can generate revenue sooner than the end of next year, I think that would be perceived as negative. So I'm looking for them. I have no obviously knowledge of this at all. I all publicly available information, but what I would be looking for is for Tesla to announce a supervised um, Tesla network where you are able to, with the press of a button, to be able to put your vehicle on the network available for rides. You have to be in the driver's seat. It is a supervised ride, but therefore you can make money. And I'm sure that they can offer a more competitive rate and take for the driver in this situation. And I think if it's viewed as a direct competitor to Uber, walking away from that event, and maybe that's immediately. I don't think so. Maybe it's in the fourth quarter they start this supervised network because 12.5xx is getting really good. It's not perfect. Everything people know that. But if it was perfect, it would be unsupervised. By the way,
Right.
that's my
Right.
like that's my summary to people. Like everybody thinks like, oh, you're saying it's good. No, if it was perfect, Tesla would make it unsupervised. It's obviously not perfect. That's why it's supervised. So in summary, Randy, I think a success would be is if analysts are walking away from that, if people are walking away from this, all right, this is Uber's been known as the great aggregator of ride sharing. And if this is a direct competitor to it now, to me, all the signs are out there. There's no Uber Tesla direct partnership going on right now. And then Uber lined up all these partnerships ahead of what would have been 8.8. If you think about it, the BYD thing was, or yeah, and the Cruise thing was before 8.8. And then they did the BYD one. Then they've done a Waymo. Like all these agreements are getting lined up. To me, that's a highly defensive posture. Now they may eventually do a deal together because it's incumbent upon Uber from a utilization perspective. Utilization drives the cost structure in this game.
Sure.
You want high utilization of your vehicles and your assets out there.
Right.
Tesla would want the same thing. But I think Tesla has a little bit of an advantage here because if they start with a supervised network of Tesla owners, or maybe like as Warren has said, Tesla ADAS drivers, I'm not opposed to that either. These are already vehicles that they own. So it's not like it's a hit on them from an asset utilization perspective. These owners already own these vehicles. So I would be looking for them to announce a supervised a Tesla network supervised one, that's starting sometime imminently, maybe in the next quarter. The next thing is I would expect them to show a beautiful looking futuristic robotaxi. Elon pulls his phone out of his shirt pocket, presses a button, and that taxi drives right up to him, picks him up. He gets in, and this thing is beautiful inside. It is redefined what sitting inside of a vehicle looks like. It does not look like a traditional vehicle inside. It's beautiful, it's comfortable, and it's got a lot of both video and I think audio assets potentially inside. And then on the outside, it's futuristic, it's cool looking, it's something you would want to be seen inside of. Okay. I think those two together are fine. I know there's people talking about, are they going to show the more affordable vehicles that are going to be ramping in the first half? And I would say is if they're ramping in December, January, maybe, but if they're not, it does not help Tesla to show something that could Osborne their existing lineup. So I don't think they would show it.
So if they don't give, so you're saying that they could give a start date on robotaxi, whether supervised or not, even as late as the end of 2025, and the street would still be okay with that. The retail investors will be.
I don't think they will give a date on that. I think they'll give a date on the production of the vehicle.
Yep.
Not a date. I think they'll give a second half of 2025 or maybe fourth quarter of 2025. These will be available. They may even start taking pre-orders for the vehicle. That wouldn't be, they took pre-orders, years in advance for the Roadster and the Semi and so forth. But what they can announce, it's not a robotaxi network. It is the Tesla. I think the higher order bit here is the Tesla network. And under the Tesla network, there's a supervised network, and then there's an unsupervised robotaxi network. I think if they announce the Tesla network and its capability, I think that would be received very well.
Okay, so I may have misunderstood then what you were saying at the very beginning, which is, do they need to have some, in order for the stock to keep going or to keep the energy up, do we have to have kind of a date certain on this supervised version of the Tesla network?
I think so. I think if the only thing that consumers could put their hands on, whether it's a supervised network or a vehicle, is a year out, I think that would be a problem. Tesla's been teasing this app for months now, well, the entire year almost. Right. So I think success would be you're walking out of that event saying, okay, imminently there's a supervised network. Your Tesla can now be an Uber. Tesla is now an Uber competitor. Right. You walk out of there because all the Ubers are manned right now too. Right. So and then Uber is working on a plan for unmanned. Working with Cruise, working with Waymo, but that's all limited. We all know that that's all limited in scale. So I think that's a situation. If they can announce an Uber competitor right away, I think it's very compelling.
All right, and we could go on for that for an hour, but unfortunately, you've only got 6 minutes, and I did want to talk about your other hobby horse right now, and that is the dock strike. So you and I had a little bit
Yeah.
of a conversation back and forth on X the other day. So the dock strike is less than 2 weeks away now. I saw somebody mentioning on X that they thought that, the first 2 weeks of a dock strike, yeah, it'll back things up and things like, but when it goes past 2 weeks, we're in big trouble. I think my response to one of your comments was the president of the United States, whoever that is, probably jumps in at week 2 and says, "Go back to work. Let's send in an arbitrator." What do you think?
Well, he would have to have invoked that. I think that there's an act that he
Yeah,
would have
Taft-Hartley.
had to have invoked earlier, and they didn't do that. So I'm not saying that the president can't try to bring them to the negotiating table and try to help accelerate it, but I don't know if the president can just send them back to work.
Oh, I think he can. Under Taft-Hartley. I think that's, you've seen it over the
But
years.
he didn't invoke it prior. He hasn't invoked it.
Oh,
So
he didn't invoke it. He just said, "I will if you don't," or something. I don't know.
I will find it and forward it to you.
Okay.
He said that he does not plan on invoking that act.
Oh, he did.
Yes. So I will find that. I will find where that's written and send it to you. Maybe it's possible I misinterpreted, but I did read this. But yeah, by the way, I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know the extent of the strike. All I know, it could be days, it could be whatever. I do know what's happened in the last couple of major strikes, which they were drawn out, and the labor side of it got big wins. The UPS one's very, very famous. You saw all the memes of UPS drivers wearing gold chains and driving whatever. It's not true. These people work hard. They probably deserved, a raise, but it looks like these were pretty significant raises they got, but they held out.
Yeah.
And now you have what happened with the auto unions last year, and they held out for a big number. And so what's happened over the last year tells me that there's a possibility that if they saw what happened with the UPS folks, they saw what happened with the United Auto Workers, like, hey, we should hold out and get ours too. So, and then you also have a president that joined a picket line. That's the other reason I don't think he's actually going to,
I see.
Right before 30 days before election, tell them to go to work. That is not, I do not see a Democrat president doing that.
Interesting. Very interesting. So obviously what people are not thinking about, and which I don't think the street is paying any attention to, because you're not seeing articles about it, is that this would be, if it goes more than 2 weeks, it's devastating. It will impact the entire economy. I happen to have started my first real business, a bicycle retail store, on the day before the only bi-coastal dock strike ever. And it just stopped everything. I mean, there was nothing available. It's almost going back to COVID days. Now we'll still have a West Coast, and there might still be stuff coming into Vancouver and into Northern Canada coming in.
There can be some rerouting, but it's going to be difficult.
But it's very difficult.
And you don't know if by the way, if you're a producer, you don't know how long you have to reroute. You don't know if you're going to start. And these are all decisions you have to make. And if you are rerouting, guess what you're doing? You're adding cost and you're adding network latency into the chain.
Absolutely.
So you have an inflation problem. So I think people that are just trying to dismiss this and say, I think it's appropriate to look at history and say, well, this is what's happened before, and call that out. But to just unless they can avert the strike, I wouldn't be dismissing this. And again, I don't see a Democrat president telling labor to go back to work without a good deal.
Right. All right. Well, listen, I know you got to get off, so I will say adieu and thank you as always for coming on.
Yeah, great conversation, Randy. Thank you.
We'll talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Well, there you go. Holy mackerel. So the dock strike, I mean, I can tell you that I know a tremendous amount about dock strikes, having been in import-export my entire life, having dealt not only with dock strikes, but with dock problems, with interruptions, rerouting things to other ports. Have done it many, many times in my career. And it is not fun, and it isn't easy, and it is expensive because all of a sudden, okay, sure, you reroute the item. Let's say you're got an East Coast dock strike, and you're saying, well, I'll reroute it to California. But now you're rerouting it to the busiest port in the world, who is now going to have containers sitting out again on the water waiting for their opportunity to come in. And then once they get in there, there's not enough trucking to handle it or enough trains to take it cross country to where you need it. So it is, it is not an easy proposition. And it is extremely damaging to the economy in a very quick minute. And I'm just shocked that the stock market is not paying any attention to it. So this is the kind of black swan. Now, let me just, even though he's gone, let me respond to one thought about the president 4 weeks before an election, telling them to just go back to work. The opposite side of that is having the country being up in arms over a dock strike that is causing people to not have income, causing products to be not on the shelf right at the time of an election. That's not a good thing either. So the union is going to have some leverage on the president in that regard. But they don't have any leverage on the dock, the folks at the dock. It's a really complex issue. Not 100% sure, certainly nowhere close to 100% sure how this one is going to work out. But it's important. It's something you should be paying attention to. All right, let's take a look at what happened with the market today. The market today was saying, well, there's a dock strike coming, so we're going to take the Dow Jones down 293 points. I don't think it had anything to do with the dock strike. I have no idea, really. There was nothing significant. Maybe the Adam Jones Jonas note on the automotive industry might have had an impact. I don't know, but yeah, it just slowly but surely all day long went down. You have the NASDAQ was up barely 7.68, and the S&P was up, down barely 10.67, and Tesla against all comers was up $2.75. Over 1% today. The Mag 7 was split with half of the rest of them going up a bit, just a bit. A couple of them up nicely. Actually, Meta, Microsoft, and NVIDIA had okay days. And the others, Apple, Google, and Amazon, were all down, but not terribly. And then Cathie Woods were all actually down across the board, including Square and PayPal, who had been, of course, again. Now, the other thing that happened today that might have impacted the Cathie Woods and might have been part of what's going on with the market in general was that, and this is, I'm going to take a minute to talk about this because it's important if you want to get really, really, if you're liking the part of what we do here that's about the economy and the stock market and how all the different things impact, then this is a very big one that I'm learning about as we go also, but I'm trying to really, really get deep on it so that I can, pass it along to you. And that's with the bond market. So the bond today, we went up all the way. What I say yesterday, I don't think it'll go above 3.75. Well, it's now at 3.791. So we had a very strong upward pressure on the 10-year. It's not 4:30 yet, so we don't know what it's going to do in the pre-market, but it is 4:30 California time. But it is, a very big bump in yields today above what I was expecting. So what's going on with that? Let's talk about that in a minute. You got the 2-month that is now down to 4.689. So that's only 90 basis points now. And then you've got the 3-month, which is now at 4.628. That is really down to, I'm going to have a hard time. Okay, so about 85. So both of them, though, well under 100. And you can remember when it was 150, 130. So what's happening here? So we know that those need to reinvert, okay? And you might think, well, it's all about the shorts rallying and driving their interest rates down to meet the 10-year. But the stuff I was reading a few weeks ago about how this reinversion happens it's largely that the 10-year, the longs, go up to meet the coming down, the ones that are coming down. So I think I mentioned this morning, if you were watching on the After the Bell show, is that what you have really, I think, is partially people that are in the bond business. This is what they do. They love the bonds. They are basically selling the 10-year in order to buy the 2-month and the 3-month. So that, and even the 2-year, all of them, all the shorts. So you get the longs and the shorts. All right. So that's a big thing that's going on right now. Now, in the meantime, while that's happening, you have oil dropping like a rock today. It is back down under 70, so dropped, I don't know, a couple of bucks today. You're down another 0.15, another 15 cents in the pre-market, sitting at 69.54, Brent at 73.46. So those have lost all the gains and they're back down below. And I mentioned this morning, again, if you're watching, that the headline was, well, people were not as excited as they thought they were about the China stimulus. So I did some more digging on that. And what's basically going on is people think, well, maybe that's not enough and that China needs to do more. And so they're like, well, we're not going to need as much oil as we thought. And so boom, oil comes down a bunch. All the gains came back out. Not quite, because we were about 67. All right, natural gas up a little bit in the pre-market, just a tad, 0.08% at 2,639 though. I mean, this is the highest I've seen in a very long time. I didn't look at the details to see how long it's been. We have got gold finally taking a little breather here, but it's 2,682. So earlier today, it was also at all-time highs. Silver up another 0.33 at 32.125. Again, I think that could be a recent, when I say recent, I mean 25-year high. And then copper down 0.02, call it flat, but still at 450. Now, I also promised that I would do a little bit of a deep dive, a little bit more detailed look at what happens with commodities in the beginning of a recession. I got some mixed information on that. It was pretty good information. Actually, I used Grok, and Grok gave some stuff that I could believe, and then some stuff that I was like, not really quite so sure that this is right. But part of it is obviously going to be specific to the kind of recession. So, but one thing that we do know is that anybody that is an extractor, whether that's extracting minerals or whether that's extracting oil, gas, whether that's even our grower in food commodities and whatnot. Well, if the market is collapsing, at some point you have to plow it back under. You have to turn it into feedstock. You have to stop pumping. You have to stop shoveling. You don't want to have so much of it that the price goes to some horrible level. So will we see some price increasing based on produced shortages because of lowered supply? Entirely possible. What does that mean? That means people get laid off who work for those folks. And then, of course, that is part of this rabbit trap, hamster wheel that we get into. All right, so that's where oil is right now. That's where copper is. Okay, so now we go into the dollar. Dollar is down against both the yen and and you would expect, if the price of if the interest rates are going higher, normally you would see the dollar getting stronger, but we see the opposite. So that's interesting. And in general, there's a lot of conversation right now going on that the dollar is pretty weak and other currencies are now going to be going, oh, this is going to hurt our exports. And so now you get that kind of thing taking place. We got Bitcoin ending up down 875 for the day so far. Just changed as I was watching, 857 at 63,140. So we've kind of slid back off of that range that we were in earlier. We'll see what happens over the next few days. And then the pre-market for tomorrow and the equities, you've got the NASDAQ up 58.50 or 0.29. You've got the S&P up 5.5 or 0.10%. And you got the Dow down 20 or 0.05 in the negative, in the red. All right, so that's the overall status of things. Now, earlier today, I did a video with Hans Nelson. I know you like him. He's got his own channel and he's on everybody else's channel. And I have him on from time to time. He's maybe a little more at the technical end compared to what I normally do, but fantastic job today asking some extremely interesting questions that I think you will appreciate. And And we also talked a little bit about 1010 and whatnot. So I'll put that card up right there to go back and check out what Hans Nelson had to say today. And then tomorrow, regular day, we've got After the Bell in the morning, and then Cern Basher. On Friday, we're going to have a fabulous thing with Brian Wong. We're going to be talking about what is the price target for the end of 2025 for Tesla stock, and how do we get to this price target? Brian, I think, will be giving you some detail, and hopefully it'll be extremely realistic. Whatever it is, I'll bet you anything, it'll be extremely entertaining and interesting, and I'm going to highly recommend you check that out. By the way, I'm moving that noon hour kind of presentation. I'm moving it a little later, like around 12:30, 12:45, something like that. I'm not getting the numbers that I think I should be for the noon program, and I don't know whether it's because of the time of day it comes out. So I'm going to try moving it just a bit later and see if that helps. Otherwise, if it doesn't, I'll move it back because I really prefer to have it come out around 11 California time. All right. Like, subscribe, notify, and hit Patreon down below. You just go down, hit the little button, go over there and help out the channel. Hey, it's been great talking to you.